President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso became a beacon of hope for many Africans. His leadership revitalized a nation long suffering under corrupt regimes, bringing dignity and respect back to its people. Ouagadougou, the capital, buzzed with new energy as lives improved. People finally trusted their government, which actively fought corruption, provided electricity, and ensured national wealth benefited its citizens. However, Traoré's rising popularity ignited fear among Africa's established leaders, those entrenched in power for decades, often linked to foreign interests and shady deals. Among them were Alassane Ouattara of Ivory Coast and Bola Tinubu of Nigeria, who saw Traoré's influence as a direct threat to their own authority. They worried his dynamic presidency could spark revolutions, especially among a youth increasingly disillusioned with the status quo. The concern wasn't limited to individual nations. The African Union (AU), supposedly a symbol of continental unity, began to turn against him. Despite widespread support from Burkinabe and young Africans, the AU shockingly excluded Traoré from its annual summit and even threatened his expulsion. Their justification? They branded him a bloodthirsty dictator, claiming his leadership jeopardized regional stability. This unexpected condemnation, backed by Ouattara and Tinubu, stemmed from a fear that Traoré's stance against Western influence and foreign interference might unleash a wave of uncontrollable change. The AU's attack was a clear attempt to silence a leader challenging Africa's old, corrupt political order. The people of Burkina Faso were enraged, recognizing this as yet another attempt by foreign-controlled African leaders to safeguard their own positions. They saw the AU as serving politicians beholden to outside powers, not the interests of its people. Africans, already fed up with corrupt leadership, now viewed the AU as an institution undermining their future. They yearned for leaders who would champion them like Ibrahim. Yet, Ibrahim Traoré remained unfazed. The AU's statement didn't bother him. He had no interest in the approval of corrupt politicians serving Western interests. His mandate was to serve the people of Burkina Faso, and he would not back down. Traoré had consistently emphasized that his leadership stood for justice, dignity, and sovereignty for Africa, regardless of international opinion. In a public address, he dismissed the AU's claims, calling them for what they were, corrupt politicians who follow orders. Traoré stated, "The African Union cannot tell me how to lead my country. These so-called leaders are more concerned with protecting their own power than with serving the people. I do not need their invitation to speak for my people." The people of Burkina Faso erupted in cheers. Ibrahim Traoré had become their hero, the man who defied foreign powers, who stood up for his country's dignity. This was more than just one man, it was about Africa's fight to reclaim its future. News of Ibrahim's defiance quickly spread across the continent, sparking mixed reactions. While Ouattara and Tinubu's supporters rallied behind them in Ivory Coast and Nigeria, Traoré's boldness inspired hope in other nations, particularly among the youth. The African Union's true colors had been revealed, exposed by Ibrahim Traoré for all to see. He had made it unequivocally clear. No foreign power would dictate Africa's destiny any longer. His words ignited a powerful flame in the hearts of Africans. They had longed for a leader who would challenge corrupt old systems, fight for Africa's sovereignty, and give them the voice they deserved. And now they had found him. Ibrahim Traoré's defiance against the African Union quickly swept across the continent. In Burkina Faso, the people felt energized, seeing their president not only defending their nation but also confronting the corrupt elites who had long held Africa captive. Ouagadougou's streets echoed with chants of support for their leader, who had become a symbol of defiance, unafraid to expose truths and challenge political systems that had failed them for so long. However, this sentiment wasn't universally shared. In Ivory Coast, President Alassane Ouattara and his supporters were furious, viewing Traoré's rejection of the AU's decision as a direct challenge to their authority. Ouattara, long known for his alignment with Western interests, feared the rise of leaders like Traoré who dared to reject the status quo. He knew that if Traoré's example spread, it could ignite revolutions that would dismantle regimes built on corruption and foreign control. The situation in Nigeria was similar. President Bola Tinubu, another leader with strong ties to Western powers, was deeply concerned by Traoré's growing influence. Tinubu saw the young Burkinabe leaders rise as a threat to his own power, as Nigerian youth were already vocal against corruption, and Traoré's leadership offered a beacon of hope for change. Tinubu feared Traoré's popularity could lead to widespread uprisings in his own country. Back in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim remained resolute. His dismissal of the African Union statement had sent shockwaves through the political world, but it had also solidified his position as the people's leader. He wasn't merely defending his presidency, he was defending the principle that African nations should govern themselves, free from external interference or corrupt internal politics. Despite widespread public support, Ibrahim knew that those opposing progress wouldn't give up easily. The AU's threats of expulsion were just the beginning. He understood the intricate political games unfolding behind the scenes. In his heart, he knew the struggle was far from over. Burkina Faso's success under his leadership had made it a target, and those who feared the spread of his revolutionary ideas would stop at nothing to bring him down. Yet, Ibrahim had made his stance clear. He would not be intimidated by Africa's old political guard. The people of Burkina Faso were prepared to defend their nation and their president. Ibrahim's message was simple yet powerful. No African leader would bow to Western whims any longer. In a public address, he spoke directly to the African people. They want to silence us, to push us back into the darkness of corruption and exploitation. But we are not afraid. We will not go back. The time for change has come. It's time for Africa to speak for itself. We will rise and we will stand together. His words were met with thunderous applause. It was clear that Ibrahim's boldness had won him not only the hearts of the Burkinabe but also the respect of countless Africans weary of the old political systems. Young people across the continent began to rally behind him, believing his fight for justice and equality could ignite a movement that would reshape Africa's future. The African Union, sensing Traoré's burgeoning support, attempted to backtrack, but the damage was already done. The truth was out. The AU, led by figures like Ouattara and Tinubu, was no longer a symbol of unity but a tool of control, manipulated by those who prioritized power over the people they were meant to serve. Ibrahim's unwavering stance exposed the AU's weakness and hypocrisy. People were no longer blind to the deep-seated corruption within the Union. However, while the people of Burkina Faso and many Africans celebrated their president's defiance, powerful forces remained determined to bring him down. The West, spearheaded by France and other European nations, observed closely. They had invested heavily in controlling African resources, and Traoré's anti-corruption policies and rejection of foreign influence directly threatened their interests. Behind closed doors, discussions were already underway on how to neutralize the young leader. But Ibrahim was no fool. He knew these forces wouldn't yield without a fight. They had already attempted to poison him through his sister-in-law, and he was certain they would try again, employing any necessary means. Despite the threats, Ibrahim stood firm, trusting in the people of Burkina Faso. He knew that as long as they remained united, no force could defeat them. Across the continent, the narrative surrounding Ibrahim's leadership began to shift. He was no longer just the president of Burkina Faso. He had become a symbol of resistance, a leader standing up to the old powers that had long dominated Africa. As more people recognized the power of the revolution he had started, his influence spread. What began as a fight for Burkina Faso's dignity had evolved into a movement for African sovereignty, destined to echo across the continent and beyond. In the quiet of his office, Ibrahim Traoré gazed at the map of Africa on his wall, knowing the road ahead would be challenging. Yet he also knew there was no turning back. The people of Burkina Faso had placed their trust in him, and he would not betray it. The revolution for Africa's freedom had begun, and Ibrahim Traoré would lead the charge for the continent's future. As days turned into weeks, political tensions escalated. Burkina Faso's defiance against the African Union and foreign powers set a significant precedent, but it also made the country more vulnerable to economic and political attacks. The world watched closely. Under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso had refused to bow to powerful nations, yet many obstacles remained. EU sanctions tightened their grip, and the African Union's attempts to isolate him were relentless. Despite this, the people of Burkina Faso remained resolute, their support for Ibrahim unwavering, their resolve strengthening with every challenge. Behind closed doors, Ibrahim's inner circle remained vigilant. Conspiracies against him continued to unfold. His security network uncovered whispers of a planned coup, and internal tensions within his own government mounted. Some of his closest allies, those who had helped him rise to power, began to show signs of doubt. The pressures from the West, the African Union, and even factions within Burkina Faso were beginning to take a toll. One dark day, Ibrahim received reports from his trusted military officers about a covert meeting between General Tou, a high-ranking officer, and foreign agents. The general, an early supporter of Ibrahim's leadership, was now suspected of plotting his overthrow. Ibrahim was stunned. His own ally, a man he had trusted, was conspiring against him. It was a devastating blow. But Ibrahim couldn't afford to be shaken. He knew that in revolutions betrayal was common. It wasn't just external enemies trying to destroy him, it was the fear of change that often turned people against their own. Ibrahim immediately called a private meeting with General Tu. His thoughts raced as he prepared. He didn't want to believe the worst about someone he considered a close ally, but the evidence was overwhelming. When Tu entered the room, Ibrahim stood, his face hardening. "What is this I hear about you conspiring with foreign agents?" Ibrahim asked, his voice calm but authoritative. Tu hesitated, his eyes flickering nervously. A tense silence filled the air. Finally Tu spoke, his voice trembling slightly. I never meant for things to get this far," Tu began. The pressure from the West, the promises of wealth and power, it all became too much. They told me that if I didn't help, they would ruin everything. I was afraid, Ibrahim. Ibrahim's heart sank, but he maintained control of his anger. Afraid? You've seen the people of this country rise with me. You've seen how the revolution is changing their lives. How can you betray that? How can you betray your own people? Tu lowered his head, unable to meet Ibrahim's gaze. I'm sorry. I got caught up in the promises, but I never wanted to hurt you. Ibrahim took a deep breath, composing himself. It's not about me. It's about the people we swore to serve. You've let your fear take over, and now you're playing into the hands of those who want to see us fall. You've been used, General. The truth hit hard. Ibrahim knew Tu wasn't the first to be tempted by power and promises. Many had fallen before. But Tu's betrayal wasn't just about one man, it reflected the larger battle for Africa's soul, a struggle between those seeking to preserve corrupt systems that had kept Africa under foreign influence for decades, and those fighting for true freedom and sovereignty. Ibrahim made a decision. General, you've betrayed the people of Burkina Faso. But I won't send you to prison. I will give you a chance to redeem yourself. Leave the country, go to Europe where they think they can control us. You have a choice now, to live with the knowledge that you chose wrong, or to help rebuild a nation that needs people of honor. Tu looked up, his eyes filled with shame, and nodded. Thank you, President. I'm sorry for what I've done.